Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. And Andrea, great job on a Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. Lenny, I missed you this morning, but the First Lady of Fantasy did such a great job. And it was great to see all of you guys that are chat rooming with us this morning, that are still in that chat rooming mode. It's good to have all of you who are listening on podcasts. And we're going to do a little more. What about the DH effect in the National League? And not to leave the American League out, I'm going to just go through and we're going to touch on a player on each team rather. Could be a pitcher, could be a batter that I think could have significant fantasy and reality impact on the season. And so it's good to see all of you. I've got the chat room up. I can see what is going on in there, and let's just take a deep dive. First of all, no news maybe is good news on the labor relations front between the owners and the players. My understanding is that there will be discussions today from what I'm reading. And remember what I told you yesterday, I'm predicting that by June the 1st, a deal is in place. We're going to have a schedule. We're going to have baseball. And we're going to be rah, 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 let's go team, right? I mean, I am really getting stoked about the season that's coming up. And I'm looking at my fantasy teams that I drafted back when. And so I want to talk this morning again about the DH universal effect on National League. Yesterday, we talked a lot about the Brewers and the impact it can have. And what I'd like to do today is simply to go through, if we can, and of course we can, had a cough, the teams who are affected by it. We talked about the Braves yesterday, so I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go through the National League East. Okay, so yesterday, remember, just a real quick, we talked about the Braves and Camargo and Riley. We talked about the Nationals. We talked about Howie Kendrick. And so I want to talk about the Mets this morning. I want to talk about the Phillies this morning. And my Philly discussion is probably going to surprise you. But let's start first with the Metropolitans. Okay. And we look at the composition of the team. And I think the DH rule could really have a positive effect on a few players. Remember, you don't have to necessarily have one set player at DH, okay? We've got to have, I think in New York, a rotation going on. And you look at the players that are affected. Well, you know Alonso's going to play. You know Conforto's going to play. How about J.D. Davis? J.D. Davis, who can play outfield, who can play third base, who last year, hit .307 with 22 homers. And entering last year, J.D. Davis had some real questions, right, about his ability to hit at the major league level. He had not been successful in Houston. I think if I'm remembering right, he hit about 180 in 2018. And so he goes over to New York and he posts his .307, 22 homer, 527 OBP line. All right, 410 at-bats last year in which he hit the 22 homers. Now, StatCast, we've talked about them a lot. StatCast, I think, provides legitimacy to what J.D. Davis has done. He's registered as an 11.4% barrel. He's averaging 91.4 miles per hour exit velocity. They're both well above the average. And when you look at the offensive output in terms of hit hard rate, 41.6%, only a 21.4% K percentage, and he had an 8.4% walk rate. Now, I think he probably benefits the most. Here's why. Not that he will be the DH, but if we have the DH, Yoenis Cespedes, he's the big talk about being the DH in New York. And maybe he is. Maybe Yoenis Cespedes returns to glory. But But remember, Jonas hasn't batted in 2 years at the major league level. And he was good. He was really good. He wasn't Babe Ruth. He wasn't Barry Bonds. He wasn't that player. He was really good. But I don't remember anyone saying in 2017, 2018 that Yoenis Cespedes was a surefire Hall of Famer. He's really good when he was playing. But it's been 2 years, guys. It's been 2 years since Jonas has stepped into a batter's box in a competitive Major League Baseball game. So he may be the DH. But if he is, it still opens up where he would have been playing. And I think J.D. Davis is one of those who may be the likely starter in left field when the season begins, irregardless of what happens with Jonas. I mean, I don't want Jonas wrestling animals. Right? I mean, come on. But I think J.D., I'll tell you another player with the Mets who I think could really benefit depending on how they structure it. And it's their second baseman, Robinson Cano. I mean, Cano, we know he had the suspension. We know he's entering age 37 season. Not 37 seasons, 37 years of age. And we know with a shortened year, that's got to benefit aging veterans. Now remember, Cano averaged 159 games played between 2007 through 2017. Now he had a broken finger in 2018. He missed 80 games with a suspension. Last year he had a hand, a quad, hamstring issues. He had 2 IL stints. But Cano is a dangerous hitter. He is in the 82nd percentile average exit velocity, 87th percentile hard hit rate, and his strikeout percentage is still only 16%. Yes, I know Robinson Cano is a risk. But he's a risk worth taking. And with the DH, he could well see time at designated hitter, giving him some days off in the field. So we'll see how the Mets employ Robinson Cano. One more player who could be majorly impacted by the DH in New York is Dominic Smith. D. Smith came into spring training last year. Remember the talk? Who would be the first baseman? Was it going to be Alonso? Was it going to be D. Smith? Dominic did not get the gig. He came in off the bench. He hit .282 as a part-time player, as a pinch hitter. He had 11 homers. He's still a good prospect, and those 11 homers came over 197 plate appearances. And remember, a lot of the second half, he was out because of a broken foot. Now, I'm concerned about Dominic Smith's defensive prowess, both, well, in the outfield, because Alonso's going to be the first baseman. But his bat can hit. Now, Cespedes playing detrimentally affects Dominic Smith. Jed Lowry, remember who he used to be? If he plays, it could negatively affect the opportunity for Dominic Smith. And remember, the Mets also acquired Matt Adams during the offseason, a left-handed hitting bat. So Smith, to me, of the three I'm talking about, is the riskiest. I think Cano plays. I think Davis plays. I'm not sure about Dominic Smith. But the universal DH can do nothing but help with the situation. And I want to now turn my attention to, and we could also talk about Matt Adams. He's certainly now with the DH, a left-handed bat on that Mets team. I think he's worthy of consideration for a play with the DH. So I think Adams probably, they went out and got him, right? I think Adams probably ranks ahead of Dominique Smith. Neither one are great fielders, and the Mets love the power that Matt Adams brings. So keep your eye on what they do in the shortened spring training 2. There's spring training 1 and spring training 2. Spring training 2, how much do they employ Adams? Where do they use him? I think he could really, really be a dark horse for fantasy purposes. Keep your eye on those 3. Matt Adams, Cano, J.D. Davis. Okay, let's talk here. Now, this is the conversation that really intrigues me. It's the Philadelphia Phillies. And, Bryce Harper he's talked about not playing at all. I don't know. Now, if Harper doesn't play in 2020, the DH spot in Philadelphia really becomes interesting. But for the moment, let's presume and assume that Harper is a player in 2020. Okay? Let's also assume that Andrew McCutchen is fully healed and back from injury. And if that's the case, 2 of the outfield slots in Philadelphia are claimed. Would you agree? So now we're left with a third outfielder. Who will the third outfielder be? Okay, so I'm going to throw 2 names at you. And maybe 3. I think there are 3 players competing for those 2 spots. Is it going to be Hazley? Is it going to be Roman Quinn? Is it going to be Jay Bruce? Now, Jay Bruce, to me, if you've owned him in fantasy, you can amen corner this one. There's no streakier player than Jay Bruce. He's the girl with the curl. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, ooh. It's like Antarctica cold. But Bruce has some incredible power. Now, last year, remember, 2019, he began the year with Seattle. And he only hit .212. And at the end of May, he was dealt to Philadelphia as a reserve. And then McCutchen tears his ACL. And then Bruce is in a starting role. And he hits .221 for the Phillies. But he had some leg injuries. And in 149 Philadelphia plate appearances, Jay Bruce walked just 3 times. That's right. 149 plate appearances, and Jay Bruce walked just 3 times. Incredible. He had 2 IL stints. Now, he has an extreme fly ball approach when he's not striking out. But he has poor overall skills at the plate. A 25% strikeout rate. A 200 BABIP. And I think he is a backup player. Now, he could well start in left field. He could be the DH, particularly against right-handed pitching. I'm just not clamoring to have Jay Bruce on my fantasy roster. So what about the other 2? What about Adam Hazley, who hit .266?